So this is where the story gets really juicy. As Ever finally launched, and almost instantly, Meghan's team started whispering that everything had sold out in under an hour. 45 minutes to be exact, blink and you missed it. Or at least that's what we were told. But there was one tiny, inconvenient detail they never shared. They never said how many units actually existed. Was it 50 jars, 500, 5,000, 5 dozen sitting on a shelf somewhere? No one knew, and somehow that part just vanished from the conversation. Instead, the sold-out claim was tossed around like confetti at a wedding. And then, poof silence. No sales figures, no victory laps, no press releases, screaming we did numbers. Just vibes, beige vibes, soft lighting, curated photos, and a parade of PR interviews insisting the brand was thriving, stunning, premium, elevated, iconic. It was like watching someone brag about straight A grades while keeping the actual report card hidden under the table. But here's the thing, gossip always finds oxygen. And this story, it was about to combust, because behind the scenes, in the quiet hum of the internet, someone got curious. No hacking, no insider leaks, just curiosity and a shopping cart. And when that cart spilled its secret, oh Meghan, the beige dream started cracking. This is where the story shifts from gossip to gasps. A clever shopper tried adding ridiculous amounts of Meghan's products to their online cart. Not to buy them, just to test the system. Most websites will stop you and say, "Sorry bestie, that's the max." But Meghan's website, it told the truth, and when those numbers came out, the internet didn't just blink. It fainted. It slid off the chair. It reached for smelling salts. Because sitting quietly in warehouses, lonely untouched, probably whispering apologies to each other, were 45,000 jars of orange marmalade, 137,000 boxes of fruit spread trios, 80,000 tins of flour sprinkles, tens of thousands of teas, candles, wines, honey jars, and more. In total, 473 unsold items, nearly 900,000 products, a mountain, a beige avalanche of disappointment, let's do the math lowball edition. If each item cost just $5 to make, and that's being generous, that's $4.3 million in unsold inventory. Just sitting there, aging, expiring, whispering to each other. Weren't we supposed to sell out in 45 minutes? And that number, that's the kind that changes everything. The kind of number that makes investors stare out the window and quietly rethink every life decision that led them here. Because the sellout story didn't just crack at this point. It shattered a brand promising instant success, doesn't end up with nearly 1 million products sitting silently in warehouses like forgotten toys from last Christmas. And Meghan was about to learn a hard truth. Once the internet smells a contradiction, it never lets go. This is where the beige dream took its first real fall. Because when customers finally opened their boxes, honey, the illusion didn't just wobble, it fell straight off the shelf. People were expecting elegance, soft luxury Instagram perfection. What they got looked like it had been packed in a hurry, maybe during someone's lunch break. Thin tissue paper, flimsy labels, crooked jars. Everything felt light, ordinary, almost apologetic, like it didn't want to be there. That dreamy beige aesthetic. In real life, it looked tired, like it needed a nap, and the products themselves didn't help teas that smelled bold but tasted like scented water. Flowers that looked less artisan and more like dried potpourri from a grandmother's bathroom. Spreads that were runny, uneven, sometimes half-filled, like someone forgot to finish the job. The boxes didn't whisper luxury, they whispered oops. And once people saw it, they couldn't unsee it. The fantasy Meghan tried to sell started slipping through her fingers, one crooked sticker at a time. Now this is the chapter that rattles the table. At first, the returns looked normal. Every new brand gets a few, but then they doubled, then they tripled, and suddenly returns weren't trickling in. They were stampeding. And the most brutal part, Many customers sent the products back without even opening the jars. One look at the packaging, and it was, no refund. Some jars even arrived unsealed, and from there, the story only gets worse. Some spreads were watery. Labels were wrinkled, bubbling, even sliding off like they didn't believe in themselves. And then came the crown jewel of chaos. Candles with no wick, a candle that cannot burn, a candle whose only purpose is to sit there silently like a very expensive beige paperweight inside Meghan's team, panic emergency meetings, supplier phone calls, full-blown damage control. And when they finally traced the problem, the picture was ugly. Rushed production, sloppy assembly, crushed flowers, messy labels, corners cut everywhere. The truth was brutal. The operation had been wobbling since day one. Customers weren't just returning Meghan's products, they were returning the experience, and that realization stung. But while her team was scrambling behind the scenes, something even scarier started happening on the outside. Retailers went quiet. Not loud, not angry, just quiet. The kind of silence that says, "We're going to pretend we didn't see this," and slowly back away. Emails took days. Phone calls ended with vague promises like, "We'll follow up soon," reorders stalled, partnership talks evaporated, because stores don't gamble on brands with high price points, high return rates, and low quality. To them, as ever wasn't luxury, it was a liability. And Meghan felt it immediately, that early excitement disappeared, replaced with hesitation, distance, and long stretches of silence. A brand can survive bad reviews. What it cannot survive is retailers losing interest, and that's exactly what was happening. As Ever wasn't just struggling, it was being politely abandoned. This is the moment the brand face-planted into its own beige fantasy. Because beige is risky. Beige only works when everything is flawless. When it isn't, it stops reading. Calm luxury and starts looking like a hotel soap sample. The labels had no texture, the jars had no weight, the poetic phrases didn't feel thoughtful, they felt like a homework assignment written in cursive. People didn't see minimalism, they saw cost-cutting. And once customers started returning $36 spreads and 64 baht the candles, they weren't just rejecting the products, they were rejecting the story. The expensive image couldn't hide the flaws anymore, and the illusion was officially broken. Instead of hiding the flaws, the brand put a spotlight on the Meghan had built something meant to whisper elegance. But the moment customers touched it, it whispered something else entirely. I cost too much and do too little. And once a luxury brand loses its illusion, darling, the show is over. Behind closed doors, Meghan's team finally sat down for the meeting. No founder ever wants. The numbers were undeniable. Returns weren't slowing, they weren't levelling out. They were accelerating like a roller coaster with no brakes. And this time there was no one to blame. No critics, no tabloids, no online haters. These were paying customers quietly opting out. That's when the truth surfaced. The brand wasn't struggling because people disliked Meghan. It was struggling because the product didn't live up to the promise. Imagine tying your identity to something. Your taste, your aesthetic, your attention to detail, only to realise the very details you promoted were the ones undoing you. The wickless candles, the crushed flowers, the crooked labels, the rushed batches. This wasn't gossip, this was reality. And Meghan felt all of it. Every lifestyle brand lives or dies by one simple rule. The customer decides the ending. And customers decided early. They liked the idea of as ever, the cozy fantasy, the soft colours, the elevated morning coffee energy. But the execution? Absolutely not. People sent items back unopened, still sealed, still wrapped exactly as they arrived, which meant the disappointment wasn't in the taste or the scent. It was in the first impression. Some buyers even carefully reassembled the packaging before returning it, almost apologetic, like they wanted it to work but couldn't pretend anymore. Their message was calm, clear, and devastating. We wanted this to succeed, but it didn't. And once a brand loses trust, it doesn't matter how pretty the packaging is. The story has already been written, which brings us to the cliffhanger of Meghan's beige empire, as Eva's opening chapter closed with nearly 1 million unsold products, a flood of returns, confused customers, silent retailers, and mistakes no luxury brand can afford to make. Now Meghan stands at a crossroads path, one rebuild everything from the ground up. New suppliers, new quality control, new standards, a new vision, real discipline. And that's where the story pauses for now. Path 2 is quieter. Let as Eva fades softly into the background, tucked away like a forgotten storyline from a season. Nobody remembers watching. Because here's the truth. Meghan can't outrun. You can market luxury. You can pose as luxury. You can even name something luxury, but luxury isn't declared. Luxury is earned. And for Meghan Markle, the world isn't watching her branding anymore. It's watching her next move, waiting to see whether she learned the lesson buried inside those 473 unsold dreams. Because in the end, beige doesn't fail loudly, it fades, and that silence, that's the loudest review of all.